Florida Live starts now.
Well, good afternoon to you and welcome into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon live on Fox Local, YouTube, and on Fox 35 TV. It's been a busy day if you've been with us throughout the afternoon here on Fox Local. If you're just joining us now here on the TV side, we appreciate you joining us as well. Here's a little bit of what you can expect over the next little bit. The next search for a new football coach at the University of Florida is underway. That's after the firing over the weekend of Billy Napier. We heard today from the athletic director, the interim head coach, some other players as well. We'll go into that a little bit more later in the show and look ahead and maybe even see some of the names that might be up for discussion and that could land in Florida and look to kind of take the next step for that Florida Gators football program. The athletic director saying today, we want someone who's going to win championships. That's the bottom line. In our Tampa connection, a Florida mother accused of killing her son. Fox 13's Nancy Gay going to have the details on that coming up for us in just a little bit. But we begin today by talking tropics, and because there is increasing chances of development for what is going to be a future Melissa. Joining us live now inside our streaming studio, Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist TJ Springer. TJ, good to see you. We appreciate you joining us here.
Thanks, Garrett. Glad to be here.
So you just got some new numbers as well, and the chances have gone up even higher for development for this.
They have, both 48-hour development chances, Garrett, and the now 7-day chances for development. But it looks like this will likely become Melissa as we progress through the remainder of the week. Now a 90% chance of development and a 70% chance over the next 48 hours as this continues to work through the Caribbean Sea. So really around the Windward and Leeward Islands, gusty wind, heavy rain. We're going to keep watching this. Now, the good news is, at least right now, the data does show this likely missing the U.S., but it's still early on. There's no center with this. This is Invest 98L, the official name for this. And some of the modeling does suggest that this will become Melissa as we progress closer to midweek, maybe a little bit later on, but I would say at least the chances for a depression going up really quickly here as we progress through the next 48 hours. So we could have our next tropical depression and likely Melissa later on this week. And some of the data that we have seen, some of the ensemble blends do suggest that this could become a hurricane Melissa as we progress through the next week plus. But the question is, when does it start to organize more? It's looking like the environment does become a little more favorable, Garrett, but looking at some of those model tracks or potential tracks there, you can see a lot of them going over Hispaniola. I would still say, Hispaniola, Cuba, all really the entire Caribbean should still watch this extremely closely. But it's looking like, and that's kind of common this time of the year, we have that big dip in the jet stream, and that gets down our way, even bringing us, that relaxation and humidity that we have. It's been such a nice week, and that, in terms of the tropics, could help steer this away from us. But it's still kind of too early to tell if that will be the case. But we'll have to watch this as we head through the next week beyond.
Yeah, and one of the things I was talking about with Brooks earlier was, he kept talking about the untapped potential kind of in that area. And what does that mean, and what could that mean for a storm like this coming out of that area where we have not seen development yet so far this season?
Yeah, I mean, the water is just so warm. So because it's just sitting there cooking essentially in the sun, it's that fuel for anything to develop. And that's what we're looking at now. I think over the next few days, it seems like the environment as a whole is going to become a little more supportive. It looks like less wind shear in this part of the Caribbean, and then of course working off that warmth. So if we have this next depression on our hands, then likely Melissa a little further down the road, it seems like it will organize there more. And some of the modeling does suggest that obviously we could get a hurricane out of this, but it's just tough this time of the year because it seems like we have these quick moving fronts that move across the nation, and that in change will drive the jet farther south, and that would likely pick this up and potentially steer it away from the U.S. mainland. But the question is, are we going to have a front? Are we going to have a dip in the jet stream to correspond with a potential strengthening system, a potential strengthening Melissa later down the road?
Yeah, I'll pull the spaghetti models back up here, and can you kind of walk us through what we would be looking at for those kind of scenarios and what might play out and how what we see could impact these different, kind of potential paths? Sure.
Right now it's kind of hugging the trade winds, going east to west. So that's what we're kind of seeing now, this westerly movement that'll continue to move it away from the Windward, Leeward Islands into the Caribbean Sea, into that, as you mentioned, that untapped potential, that warmth in the Caribbean. So that's likely what's going to drive this strengthening pretty quickly. But then it looks to move into this essential wall of wind shear. All that red that you're seeing on the map here, this is that shear that would potentially tear this apart. And that dip in the jet stream is kind of where we see that quote-unquote wall of wind shear. So that would help steer this one way or the other. But it's looking like now, little by little, we're seeing more data that would suggest this going back into the open Atlantic, moving to the northeast, away from the Caribbean and away from us. But the question is, is there going to be a system that would drive the system away from us? So that's what we're going to be watching and waiting as we head through the next week or so.
And even something, if we're talking about a storm that stays away from us here in Florida, could still see major impacts on Haiti, Dominican Republic. I mean, some of those areas that have been hit hard in the past.
Definitely, yeah. And they obviously don't have the infrastructure that we do here, and that's tough. For them, it could lead to devastating mudslides, things of that nature, in the mountainous terrain. And even for us, speaking locally across Florida and Central Florida, we saw that with the nor'easter, we saw that with Imelda just offshore. If this goes just to our east, that means more rough conditions along our coastline, more beach erosion, the coastal flooding potential. So the question is, how close does it go to us from the Caribbean, or is it more of a bigger threat for us? So that's what we're going to try to fine tune little by little as we head over the next 7 to 10 days plus.
So timeline for formation is?
I'm thinking that it could become Melissa midweek onward, I would say. But I would think a depression at least over the next 48 hours or so, and then potentially Melissa by Wednesday into late week.
And with it being an invest, we know that means that Hurricane Center is going to be mining this thing for data and really kind of delving into this to kind of figure out, get us some of that good data that's important for figuring out what's going on with it.
For sure. Hopefully getting the hurricane hunters in there more and more. And it definitely looks like, even just looking at some of the satellite imagery today, we've seen some bigger storms, gusty wind. I think the wind right around 40 miles per hour now, some gusts in the tropical storm force realm for sure. So it's definitely going to be something to monitor. And I would say if anyone has plans to the Caribbean, travel, definitely want to watch this even more closely.
Because this is something we're going to be talking about for a while now.
This is the rest of the month almost.
Yeah. Which is also kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, I think just because, as you said, it's not moving all that fast now, and it's going to go over this area of extreme warmth. And if it doesn't really pick up some of that wind in the jet stream. It may kind of sit there and hang out for a while. I think that's why it's going to be one of those things that it's going to be with us in a story in the weather world for a while until it can hopefully get away from any sort of major landmass and back out into the Atlantic.
All right. Well, Fox 35 Storm Team Meteorologist TJ Springer, we appreciate you joining us and breaking all that down for us. We know that that you and the other members of the Storm Team are going to be keeping a close eye on this. I am sure we will have you back on here on Florida Live to talk more about it because there's just a lot to watch.
For sure.
A lot to watch with, and that's kind of where we are right now. Just kind of waiting and seeing.
Definitely. At least the silver lining is we're almost 1 month left of hurricane season officially. We're getting closer and closer to the end of the tunnel. So hopefully we can see this one again miss a majority of people, which would be wonderful.
Yeah, that would be good. Well, TJ, we appreciate you joining us. We're going to take a quick break here on Florida Live. Let me give you a live look at downtown Orlando right now. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more after this. So keep it here on Fox Local, YouTube, and on Fox 35. A live look at Daytona Beach right now from our Hard Rock Hotel camera. And this might be the most actual sand and beach that we have seen from this shot in a while. Welcome back into Florida Live. Garrett Wymer here, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon live on Fox Local, YouTube, and on Fox 35. Well, it is Monday, and you may have had a rough start to the week technology-wise because the Amazon Web Services being down this morning caused issues for a lot of different platforms, websites, apps, you name it. I mean, a couple of dozen things, everything from Disney Plus to Delta Airlines, all kinds of things impacted by an outage of that cloud services provider. There's really three major cloud services service providers, and so when one goes down, you see widespread impacts like we did this morning. Some platforms still having some issues, even though Amazon came out later this morning and said that the issue has been fully mitigated. It's an ongoing thing. Had the chance earlier to speak with Matt Rose, who's the CXO of TechRage IT in Winter Springs. He broke this down for us, what all we know about this and what some of the takeaways are from an outage like this.
very early in the morning. The report seemed to happen at 3 or 4 Eastern time that really everything related to AWS globally was having some level of issues, if not completely down. It does appear that in the early morning hours, at 6, 7 a.m. it started to recover. So luckily for the workday and for everybody getting along with their day, but it really took down a tremendous amount of applications that everybody uses on a regular basis.
Yeah, we're talking major services, major apps, major websites. I mean, big impact here.
Yeah, I don't think people realize it. Unfortunately, these kind of things seem to happen every so often. But, when you talk between AWS, which is Amazon Web Services, if you're not familiar, which is obviously owned by Amazon, between Microsoft services and Google, they run a huge portion of really most of the cloud-based applications people use on a regular basis. So, things like Ring were down this morning. If you were trying to look at your Ring cameras, you couldn't do it.
And I think that's the thing that's kind of, anytime something like this happens, kind of eye-opening for people to kind of see and think about how many services are reliant on kind of one provider like that, and all that depends on something like AWS.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, so there's a good and a bad to it. I mean, so obviously you may have heard the whole statement that, the cloud is just someone else's computer, which came about years ago. Because, 20 years ago, even 15 years ago, there were just huge data centers owned by companies. A Ring would have had a data center they rented or built out for their services. But then these huge things, Amazon, Google, whatever, came about that were just massive, massive, massive compute power. And so everybody moved to them, and they're on a subscription basis. So you can run the service and not have to invest in all this hardware, but it still means that they can make a mistake or one major thing go down, and the whole service is down.
And so, as a consumer, or a worker, someone who is using these apps and these services, is there anything that we can do on our end when it comes to things like this? Or are we just kind of at the mercy of them?
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, I feel like we say this a lot when we talk. I feel like, unfortunately, you are somewhat at their mercy. It's the way these services are built is that you typically, you have redundancy built into an AWS. You have redundancy built into Microsoft, but it's still within their kind of purview. So it's not normal or necessarily easy for a service to have AWS and Microsoft. And even if you go to something like Ring, they're owned by Amazon. So why would they put anything in Microsoft's basket? And unfortunately, it's a lot of times a mistake or a bad update, as we keep seemingly saying, that cause these issues.
From a kind of business perspective, what do you recommend to small business owners and those kinds of things when it comes to, because it seems like everything's in the cloud these days, mm-hmm. and it seems like it's a way that makes sense for businesses to kind of do that, rather than have their own servers like you kind of talked about. But what do you recommend? What do you tell people?
I mean, I think you really have to look at there's definitely this disadvantage, but if you were to go back and look at the uptime of something that when there wasn't these huge data centers out there, I actually think at the end of the day, we're probably doing better in uptime. It just doesn't seem like that because it's not just one service that goes down, it's everything. When a company, even a large company like a Ring or any of these others that were affected were to go down before, it would only affect one thing, but it probably happened more often when they had to deal with their own engineers and their own hardware. So I think it's still, we're better off. It's really painful because it doesn't just take down one service, it takes down a lot of them. And it's just, and the funny thing is a lot of times what happens at the end of the day sounds kind of simple. There almost always seems to be this issue related to something called DNS, which is funny because it's kind of like if you're using Google Maps and tells you how to get somewhere. If you didn't have Google Maps, you were just driving around. That's what happens when these services go down a lot. It's basically when you go and hit google.com, DNS tells you how to get there. When these services go down, your computer doesn't know where to go. And that's honestly, unfortunately, what happens most of the time.
That's an interesting analogy and a good way of putting it there. Is it concerning at all that so many companies and services rely on just a few of these cloud providers, though, and so that we do see when there's an outage like this, it takes down so much?
I think it's concerning, and I think the only thing you could think of then is almost just realizing, and I think it's probably in a lot of the parts of life we live in, there really are only those three main providers. So if anything, it's more of, I think the idea of cloud-based providers is overall a good thing. It's just, yes, we're putting all our eggs in really three baskets, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. So I think that's the bigger concerning thing. But I also think it's just the amount of money those companies spent to build these is not money that most companies have, and even to get the market share. So I think that's, if anything, the biggest concern you have is just that, yeah, we're putting our stuff in one place, but is there a better option, or is there an easier option? Bringing everything back into your office is not easy either, because most companies don't have the money to spend all the money they need on hardware, internet. So it's ease, but yeah, the risk is there.
So just to take us behind the curtain here and what the IT teams may be doing right now to try to get to the bottom of this and make sure something like this doesn't happen again.
So the small word that's come out so far is that the issue was related to DNS, which again is that again it's a basic function of internet protocol. It's a basic function of how the internet works. Again, it's how when you go to google.com and you don't need to think of where that's actually going. And something happened with that, which is unfortunately way too common. DNS is probably the culprit for most issues, and I would venture to guess that there was a bad update, a mistaken update. Unfortunately, I kind of go to, we are living in a fairly, well automated and AI related world, but there's a lot of updates that still are manual, and I'm just going to venture to guess that they're trying to find out what update was pushed, who pushed it, or what change was made, because it's usually one little needle in a huge haystack. But I'm sure, they say everything's back up. I think they say it's stable. I don't think the words have come out that it's fixed, because I think they are still trying to find a root cause. And I think that's the trouble now, is why exactly did it happen, and why on a Monday morning? It's one thing if this happened 2 a.m. on a Sunday or something, whatever, would be slow, which is a hard thing to say, but I'm sure they're doing a root cause analysis right now.
Yeah, their work week off to a rough start too.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's a bad Monday.
What's the bottom line here, Matt? What should people know?
They should just know that, there's these great advantages to these services, and it's where you don't really have a lot of control over it. Whether a business, whether personal, you want to sign up for a service, they're probably hosting it on one of these services. It gives them tremendous ability that they can grow quickly and scale without even thinking about anything. But then it also does allow that when an issue like this happens, if there were to, if cyber, attacks were to happen on these services, you could be down on those services. So I think you have to realize that they are tremendous advantages. They're cloud-based. You probably need to have some level of what to do if it doesn't work. In the case of, when Microsoft email goes down, you still need to know you have a phone number to call and, hope that you can do some business the other way. But I think on the advantages side, you have to know that since so much runs on this, they're not going to let it be down for a day or two. They're going to put every effort and the full force they have on fixing it. So, but just knowing that you have to realize that with the advantage we have of all these things, you do run the risk of the occasional downtime, like any service would have.
And to your point, Matt, we did see that it was not down for very long. So that is, I guess, a positive here.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that, these services make a ton of money from all these different companies that buy into them. And obviously there's a lot of firepower behind those from CEOs or from just stockholders. So they're going to get up and running quickly if possible, or they're going to find a workaround. And that's obviously what they will do. And I don't think we typically see more than a couple hour downtime in this, which, hopefully we see it maybe once a year.
Yeah, let's hope. Let's hope we're not talking about this again here soon. Matt Rose, CXO of TechRage IT. We appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Garrett.
And we're going to take a break here on Florida Live, give you this live look at Lake Fairview from our Grills Lakeside camera there. We'll be right back with more Florida Live in just 2.5 minutes. And here's a live look right now at Port Canaveral from our Launch Credit Union camera in Brevard County. Welcome back into Florida Live. Garrett Wymer here, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon. Let's take you now to the Bay Area for our Tampa connection. And Fox 13 senior content producer Nancy Gay joining us with a look at some of the big stories they are tracking at Fox 13 Tampa Bay. And Nancy, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Garrett. We're going to start today in Bradenton, where U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem gave an update on ICE earlier this morning. And during this morning's press conference, she touted the relationship the agency has with the state of Florida. She praised Alligator Alcatraz and Deportation Depot because they provide bed space to house illegal immigrants ahead of deportation. She said that since January, the Department of Homeland Security has arrested more than 480,000 criminal illegal immigrants and seized illegal guns as well as drugs. Now, according to Noem, 70% of those who have been arrested have criminal charges against them or have already been convicted of those criminal charges. Now, while she was down in the Manatee, Sarasota County area, she highlighted several people who were arrested from that area, including a convicted murderer from Cuba, a man from El Salvador who was convicted of sexually assaulting a child, as well as an illegal immigrant who was in the country from Honduras. Now, she stressed that all of these suspects have been deported in the past, and they came back to the United States of America, and they have been convicted of pretty serious crimes. So, as she said, they have been arrested, and she said they will face those charges. Now, Noem added that anyone who is in this country illegally, she recommended that they self-deport, because if they wait to be detained, she said that they will not have an opportunity to come back. Garrett?
Well, this is the second time just in the past couple of weeks that we've had, federal officials coming here to Florida and talking about, kind of similar situations here when it comes to the arrest of illegal immigrants, and obviously an ongoing priority of the Trump administration. And these officials, whether it was the Attorney General Pam Bondi last week or Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem this week, they've all talked and really kind of highlighted that effort that Florida, at the state level and the local level has put into this effort.
Yeah, she definitely praised not only local law enforcement agencies such as those in Sarasota as well as Manatee counties, but the state in general for its efforts in working with the federal government to arrest these illegal immigrants. So she definitely praised the state of Florida for its efforts. And again, she did talk a lot about Alligator Alcatraz as well as Deportation Depot and said that they could really be used as a model across the country.
Our second story in the Tampa connection, and it's a disturbing case out of Pasco County, Nancy.
Yes, this is a very disturbing case. We learned that a Pasco County mother is accused of murdering her son. Now, we don't have a whole lot of information, but we do know that Justine Morose called 911 around 9:30 yesterday morning to report a juvenile's death in Land O'Lakes. Now, we do not know how old that juvenile was or how he even died, but we have been told that that juvenile was Morose's son, and his death is considered to be a homicide. Now, she has been charged with second-degree murder in connection with his death, and this morning we learned that she was employed by Pasco County Schools. She was a graduation enhancement teacher with West Pasco Education Academy. The school district did confirm that she has been arrested, and she said that she will not be on any school campus. And the school district also expressed its deepest condolences to everyone who is grieving. Morose, she was supposed to make a first appearance earlier today around 1 o'clock or 1:15. And we will have much more details about what happened in that first appearance and try to see if we can get any information about what the circumstances were surrounding this juvenile's death. Garrett?
Yeah, still a lot of questions about that investigation, Nancy, and still a lot of questions as well about an internal investigation at the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office.
Yes, that's right. 2 colonels are the latest to resign, and this is all amid an academic cheating scandal within the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. Now, the Sheriff's Office confirmed that Colonel Christopher Rule as well as Colonel Michael Hannaford resigned on Friday. Now, former Chief Deputy Anthony Collins, he announced his resignation at the end of July, and his resignation actually came 4 days after the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office received a tip containing these cheating allegations. Now, Sheriff Chad Cronister said that the Sheriff's Office received an email from Collins' wife alleging that he had paid someone to help him complete coursework for training classes at the FBI National Academy. Cronister said that Collins resigned before a formal investigation could be launched into the academic cheating allegation, but he does believe that if it had been investigated, it would have been substantiated based on evidence. Now, Cronister added that the allegations impact the entire agency's reputation, but we do have a lot of questions remaining in this, and it still remains to be seen if more resignations will be taking place in the future. Garrett?
Already seen quite a bit of fallout from that as that continues. It's going to be interesting to see what happens next.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens next. That story has been one of our top stories online since it was posted, so there's definitely a lot of interest in this story.
All right. Well, Fox 13 senior content producer Nancy Gay, we appreciate you joining us this afternoon with our Florida connection, or our Tampa connection.
Thank you.
Now, I wanted to take you to a heartwarming story over the weekend as the Honor Flight Central Florida Network were able to take some veterans to Washington, D.C. for a special honor flight. More than 1,000 veterans from Central Florida have taken part in that since 2012, part of this program. And it's something that always seems to mean so much to these veterans to be flown to Washington, D.C. To get to experience the war memorials there and kind of really just soak in that experience and experience it with other veterans as well. And Fox 35 photographer Michael Marandino spoke with some of the veterans this weekend at MCO, Orlando International Airport, after their flights returned from that trip to D.C. Here's what they told him.
Well, really, it was fine. Everything went well. They got us in and out of things on time. It wasn't cold, believe it or not. And there was no interference from the parade that was supposed to be going on. And they showed us around things that I didn't see when I was assigned there. so happy. Great group. Just like here, people hanging out, and just like their group that works, and people stopping you on the street because they recognize the shirts or something. So it's a good thing.
Roger, what was the most special part of the day for you?
This entire trip was perfect. The weather, all the people, the monuments that we saw, the memorials. But I would say the most important thing that I saw was basically the Vietnam War.
And why was that so special for you to see?
Well, I lost some friends in Vietnam, and I was not one to say I would be impressed by the wall, but it was very impressive, and it brought back memories.
This question goes for the both of you. Whichever one of you wants to answer first, go ahead. What was it like to experience this, not just with you guys, but with also other veterans by your side as well?
I would say that most of the veterans that I met on this particular trip said they felt happy to be called an American. That was very simply said, and the trip itself just brought that out. The people we met gave you thanks for being a veteran. They gave you a handshake. They gave you a bump, and it made us feel good.
How about you, Chris?
It was great. Good group, particularly good group. And the group that running this thing are very well organized, and they have people coming from everywhere, it looks like, working. It's a good idea. Same thing. People talk. Some told of their experiences, what they did with it. But they didn't go into detail on like Vietnam and what it was really like. And I think everybody wants to avoid what it was really like. So they just looked at the pleasantry of what this mission was of showing us the big city.
Chris, what surprised you? What surprised you most about today?
That I was there at my age.
Was it a surreal experience?
No, it was D.C., which I was assigned there at the Pentagon years ago, and it was nice to see the things there. Was it a surreal experience? No. That's history to me. I retired from the Army in 1981, so everything's history. It's hard enough for me to remember where I am without it. So, but it was a good deal, good people.
The only thing I could tell you is that everybody left with a very good feeling about being where we were at this time in the world, and it was a nice trip all in all. Brought a lot of people together.
Always good to see those veterans get to go on those trips and see the reception that always greets them upon their return. A live look at Capitol Hill right now in Washington, D.C. Keep it right here. We've got more to come on Florida Live after this. live look at the Swamp, Ben Hill Griffin Stadium on the University of Florida campus in Gainesville. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon, live on Fox Local, YouTube, and on Fox 35 TV. We know a new head coach search is underway at the University of Florida after the Gators fired head coach Billy Napier over the weekend. It's been a disappointing start to this season and a disappointing stretch in his tenure there. We want to bring in now Graham Hall, who's the Florida Gators reporter for 24/7 Sports. Graham, we appreciate you joining us this afternoon here on Florida Live.
My pleasure. It's an interesting time in Gainesville and certainly a disappointing start for Florida's season. And now the Gators find themselves once again looking for a new head coach. And I think you can say, though, without a doubt, that the program is in a better place than when Billy Napier got here. And now they will look to find an elite head coach who can take advantage of all the resources and the impressive talent on the roster.
Graham, I don't think anyone was really surprised that Billy Napier was let go, but I'm curious what you make of the timing. There are some who would say, why at this point in the season, and some who say, why did it take this long?
Yeah, I do think that, firing a coach before the season has fully gone off the rails is kind of admitting that it's a lost year. And for Florida, they were still hoping that they were going to turn things around and be able to be more competitive with a daunting schedule that saw them go to LSU, at Miami, two of the top 10 teams in the nation at the time, take on Texas, then go to Texas A&M. I mean, that's a grueling stretch. And the loss to USF, though, was such a valuable chance for Florida to pick up an early season win, and to have that slip by, you started to see, okay, it's more likely than not going to be a disappointing rest of the way for Florida if they're not able to make some immediate improvements. And while Florida was able to make some strides, and they were in each one of those games I mentioned, they were not able to overcome all the hurdles, from the top teams they were facing to obviously DJ Lagway's very tough year that saw him deal with a handful of injuries and not able to make the strides that he needed to make behind the scenes. And now Florida heads into its second bye week, making the coaching change, which I think all along makes the most sense. You always want to, if you're going to make a change, go into a bye week to give the interim head coach time to make the adjustments that they need, for the players to process the loss, so it's not hanging over them. They lost their head coach, so it's not hanging over them heading into the next game. They'll now have nearly 2 weeks to do just that. And Billy Gonzalez is going to make some changes. Certainly, he's going to have Ryan O'Hara, who was the quarterback's coach at Florida, be in DJ Lagway's ear. So that is a change, and they're going to need some time to get it right. So the timing makes sense. I know some people sit here and say, hey, why do it after a victory? I think this makes it pretty clear that Florida is going to make a change, win or lose, against Mississippi State on Saturday. And this is just the ideal time to do it, to ensure that they have a chance to be more competitive, to try and get to bowl eligibility and go out on a high note and do right by the players and the staff members who are probably auditioning for a new job now.
Yeah, you talk about Billy Gonzalez, the receivers coach, who is now stepping in as interim head coach. What does he bring to the table, and what do the Gators need to do to try to salvage this season somewhat?
Yeah, he brings, a championship pedigree, obviously being on Urban Meyer's staff when Florida won 2 national championships in the mid-2000s. He's a guy who's loyal to Florida, loves being here. He's someone that the fan base can rally around and the players can rally around. I think that he makes a ton of sense in that regard to put him in this position, even though he has not been a head coach before. He's someone who is going to represent the Florida logo, and that's what you want. And he's going to make some adjustments offensively. Florida fans made so much, and rightfully so, of Florida's usage of 12 personnel under Billy Napier when they have all these weapons at the skill position, the wide receiver. And this is a chance to maybe increase how much you're using those talented guys at wide receiver. So it makes a ton of sense from that regard. He's someone that I think the fan base can easily root for. Like I said, the championship coming back to Florida as well. It's rare that you see someone make 3 stops at a program. I think that speaks to how much the University of Florida means to Billy Gonzalez, and it makes a ton of sense in that regard. So he's absolutely going to get these guys motivated to play. And you mentioned what they have to play for. Bowl eligibility, you sit here and think that for a lot of these teams, it's college football playoff or bust, but there's a lot of guys on this roster who it's their final year of college football. They want to go to the postseason. They want to go out on a high note, and they still have a chance to play spoiler to some of the top teams left in front of them. Georgia, Tennessee, Florida State, going to Ole Miss, going to Kentucky. If you can win 3 out of those 5 and get to bowl eligibility, that's an impressive finish to the season here. And it would mean a little bit more to fans knowing that even with an interim head coach, if they can knock off a couple of their rivals here, it's going to speak to the talent on Florida's roster, and it's probably going to give them a better chance of retaining a lot of the top players, knowing that if another coach comes in, they still have a lot of key guys that they can rally around in 2026 and try and get back to that contender status that fans have so desperately wanted this program to get back to.
The athletic director, Scott Strickland, saying today that their search is going to be thorough and it is going to be deliberate. And I'm curious if there are names that kind of stick out to you at this point that might be a good fit for the Florida Gators, or at least some folks that they may want to take a close look at.
Yeah, I think Lane Kiffin is the one that everyone talks about. You know, what he's done up there in Oxford hasn't really reached the level that Florida fans want a head coach to have reached. But who's going to blame Florida's athletic department if you do land Lane Kiffin and it doesn't work out? I mean, that would be probably, from that mindset, the safest hire that Florida could make, because no one would fault Scott Strickland and the boosters for wanting Kiffin to be successful at Florida. There's obviously the Florida ties for him too. I think he makes a ton of sense. I mean, if you can land a home run hire, a guy like a Dan Lanning or a Marcus Freeman, I think fans would certainly be overjoyed at that too. But there are questions with them, considering the lack of, success in the SEC, having to learn a new recruiting landscape. I think that they're going to go with a head coach with experience. I think there's a lot of coordinators out there who do make sense, like a Will Stein or a Blake Baker. But I do think that there's going to be a lot of fans who want it to be a home run hire, a well-known name. And with Florida's resources and the talent at its disposal, they're hoping that whatever coach has already had success elsewhere can come to Florida and reach new heights. So there's some names that make sense. But if you ask me, I do think that when you hear deliberate search and exhaustive in a sense, that you're thinking they're going to leave no stone unturned and they're going to look for some names out there that maybe haven't made their way to the public light, or names that people haven't mentioned as being attainable. Maybe a Cliff Kingsbury, who's at the Washington Commanders as the quarterback's coach, someone like that who's young, has had success in college football before. That would make a ton of sense to me. I do get the sense that we're going to hear some surprising names coming out in the near future that many people haven't talked about so far.
We've seen quite a bit of churn in that head coaching role over the past few years for the Florida Gators. Do you think that is concerning at all to these potential job candidates looking to maybe step away from whatever job they may be at now and coming to a place like Florida?
I don't think so. I think that the University of Florida is still a well-known brand. It's a top-tier public university. What coach wouldn't want to come here and play for one of the only program in this century that has won 3 national championships in football? I think that it makes a ton of sense in that regard for any coach to want to come here and prove that they can be the next Urban Meyer or the next Steve Spurrier, because you're going to be revered and highly regarded for the rest of your life by a certain fan base if that happens. So each one of the previous coaches, from Billy Napier, Jim McElwain to Dan Mullen, had their own issues that led to their firing, their own reasons. And actually, I think that if you're Florida's athletic department, giving Billy Napier as long as you gave him, more than 3 years, when there were calls for him last year to be fired, is appealing. You have an athletic department that is going to give you time to be successful. And I think that is appealing to candidates, knowing that they're going to get 3 years to have a chance at this before a change is made. And in this day and age, when you can overturn the roster and go from being a middle of the pack program to competitive overnight due to the transfer portal and recruiting, I think that it's an appealing landing spot for a ton of coaches. I don't think it's lost its luster whatsoever. This is still a top tier job, even though they have yet to make the college football playoff and haven't had the level of success the past 2 decades that fans so desperately crave.
Last thing here, Graham, you mentioned the, NIL, the transfer portal, just kind of the way the game works nowadays. With all that and the questions that come anytime you, fire a coach, it had to be encouraging today to hear, at least from DJ Lagway and Miles Graham, both saying that, hey, I'm a Florida Gator.
Yeah, Miles Graham is a legacy guy. His dad went through a coaching change at Florida when Steve Spurrier left the program and they hired Ron Zook. So he reached out to his dad, understands it's a business. He's got to just focus on what he can control, and that's keeping the roster together. The transfer portal rule changes are probably the best thing working in Florida's favor. It would have been until, a month ago that when a coach is fired, the portal opens for 30 days. That's no longer the case. You're going to have a chance to put a new coach in place, and that coach will get 5 days to retain the roster and make their appeal before the portal will open. So when that does happen, if it's in the first week of December, the end of November, whenever, they'll have 5 days, and then the portal will open, and then it'll open again in January. So I think that for Florida, a lot of these conversations behind the scenes will occur in the next month ahead. Retaining DJ Lagway is of the utmost importance in my mind. I know he hasn't had a great year in 2025 due to the injuries, but he's still an immense talent with a lot of potential, still an underclassman. You're going to want to make sure that you keep that guy. And I think with the portal rules, now you have a better chance to do that than you would have a couple of weeks ago even. So that process is going to continue, and I think that for Florida, it's going to increase their chances of keeping all the promising young players on the roster, from Dallas Wilson to Vernell Brown III to obviously Jaden Baugh, Miles Graham, DJ Lagway, you name it. Florida has a lot of key young guys that they're going to look to keep in the fold so that the next coach that comes in is going to have the best chance possible for them to elevate the product on the field rather than a step back occurring, which is typically what you have seen in college football. When a new coach comes in, there's a little bit of a reset here. I think that Florida's going to have a really good chance at keeping its upward trajectory once the new coach comes in.
Well, certainly encouraging to hear. Graham Hall, Florida Gators reporter from 24/7 Sports. We appreciate you joining us, and good talking with you this afternoon here on Florida Live.
Pleasure's all mine. Y'all take care out there.
All right, you do the same. We're going to take a quick break here on Florida Live, give you this live look back in Gainesville. We'll be right back with more live on Fox Local, YouTube, and on Fox 35. A live look at Kia Center, the home of the Orlando Magic. in downtown Orlando on this Monday afternoon. Welcome back into Florida Live. Garrett Wymer here, and thanks for joining us live on Fox Local, YouTube, and on Fox 35. And again, we are still going through some construction here, so I apologize if you can hear some of that noise around our streaming studio, our temporary studio here this afternoon. But it was a big day at Kia Center earlier today for a number of students in Orange County. More than 3,000 OCPS students got to hang out at Kia Center with some of the Magic players today. It was all part of the Pick, Read, and Roll reading program that was kicked off today. Really exciting and a lot of fun. We had some live pictures from that event if you were watching earlier on Fox 35 News Plus on Fox Local. And we also heard from some of the Magic players about what this means and the importance of this program as well.
Look up to you and in this form, not just basketball, but from an education standpoint, from a reading standpoint, and for them to see someone like you promote that.
Yeah, I still got to get used to that for sure. But you know, it's an honor, and it's something to be in a position like this and to have an impact that goes way beyond basketball. And that's what's exciting about this event is to be able to give back to the community and to kind of share a non-basketball moment with the community and have like a little moment where we can give our wisdom and the stuff that helped us in our lives to the younger generations.
How much energy you were at this event last year? You're still kind of getting used to being the hero that people look up to. How much energy do you and your teammates get from them from right before the season starts?
I mean, you can hear them right now. They're crazy loud out there. So seeing them as hyped as they are, even though we haven't even been on the court yet, is really a rewarding feeling. Feels really good, and obviously we're trying to take that swing into the season and keep that in our minds.
You guys get a lot of support from the community. Just how important is it to give that back to the fans, because especially for all that it gives you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the least we can do is kind of reciprocate that and make sure that we carry out that same energy that they bring every single night we step on the court, and I'm really excited for especially holiday season, and then other events that me and my teammates are going to plan this season to kind of make sure that we also take care of our community.
You mentioned the season starting. Just how ready do you guys feel about?
We feel really good. Obviously we did a good job during preseason, taking care of business, and that's the same energy we try to carry into opening night and then throughout the rest of the season.
Charlie, we all know how important this event is to be giving back to kids for their job reading, and then other ones inspiring them to read. How good is it to be out here today?
Well, it's so great to be here today and to partner with our friends at Orange County Public Schools. It's our 7th year of doing Pick, Read, and Roll. It's amazing that we've been there that long, and just to see the increase in literacy rates has been fantastic.
Just what does it mean to the Magic to be able to do events like this, like be involved in the community, not just like around the holiday season, but throughout the entire year, especially with kids?
Well, yeah, community is a core value, and to give back to these children and to see the excitement out there. I mean, to see the building rocking. Gosh, we need to bring them back for some games. It's so loud out there. But, you hear numbers like 30% increases in literacy rates just from this program with our friends at Orange County Public Schools. And again, you can't ask for a better partnership.
With a team that's so in the public eye, how important is it to be kind of a public face for events like this to kind of inspire and help kids kind of achieve what they want to at school?
Well, it all starts with the DeVos family, and it comes down, and we're a family-run organization, and we believe in giving back to the community, and this is such a great way to give back to the kids, and to see them all excited and the smiles on the face, that's what it's all about.
How much energy?
The increase in literacy rates certainly notable, but how cool is it to see the energy that they brought to Kia Center earlier today and the smile on all those kids' faces as well. Well, we are out of time here on Florida Live this afternoon. Appreciate you joining us today here on Fox Local, YouTube, and on Fox 35 TV. And if you want to join us, we start our news streaming at 11 a.m. pick up as soon as GDO Extra leaves off and bring you right through the rest of the afternoon. So we hope you join us live on Fox Local and on YouTube throughout the day. And, of course, we appreciate you joining us in this 2 o'clock hour here on Fox 35 as well. So still more to come throughout the afternoon, and Fox 35 News coming up later today as well. One thing we didn't get to tonight, the Buccaneers playing the Lions on Monday Night Football. That game's at 7 o'clock. We've got a preview for you that you can find on fox35orlando.com, where we talked to Tim Walters from the Florida Times Union and Florida Today. So here's a live look in Orlando. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow.